Sven. I'm a solutions engineer at Zscaler. IoT and OT devices are the backbone of smart factories. They are really tough to secure because oftentimes they are not patchable, they have loads of vulnerabilities, and they are in risk of being laterally infected by threats on your network. From talking to our customers in the manufacturing business, we know that you are probably also struggling with some or all of those challenges that I'm going to talk about. So the first one I already touched upon, securing IoT and OT devices. Super difficult thing to do. The next part, OT and IoT micro-segmentation, really ties into that because you now have those vulnerable devices on your network and you need to make sure that only trusted sources or destinations can establish communication channels with those devices. The third one is also important because this manufacturing infrastructure is oftentimes maintained by external parties, for example through support contracts. And if you are not careful enough when you're providing access to those OT resources to third parties, you run into the risk of infection. For example, if the third party is breached, then your manufacturing environment will get compromised and you will have an outage that will probably be really expensive. If you're operating all that infrastructure, business continuity and disaster recovery are also crucial, because what happens if there's no internet connection, if maybe the security platform that you're using is offline, you really need to think about that and be careful when implementing a zero trust strategy that also works during blackouts or brownouts. So now let me show you how we address those challenges. First off, we run a security cloud, which is called the Zero Trust Exchange. And that cloud is housed in over 160 data centers globally, including China. And that cloud acts as a platform and as a switchboard to securely connect your users and your applications and IoT and OT devices and also cloud environments, for example, if you're running applications with hyperscalers like AWS, GCP or Azure. For your users, it's super simple. We just install an agent on their devices that connects to our cloud. But when it comes to those devices where you're unable to install an agent, on the edge of your network, we can place a virtual or physical device that is called a Zero Trust Edge. And that also creates an outbound connection to Zscaler and is fully managed by us. You just configure the policies and what kind of security measures to implement. So any traffic that is coming from your OT or IoT devices can just be sent to the Zero Trust Edge, which then transparently forwards this to Zscaler. And from there, we can inspect the traffic and securely send it to web or SaaS destinations or into your private cloud or data center infrastructure. The same is also true if you have branch locations, so this is a copy and paste approach. Whenever you open up a new location, you just place a Zero Trust Edge here as well. And that then connects to Zscaler. Coming to the next challenge, IoT and OT micro-segmentation. What's really great is that the Zero Trust Edge is not only used to forwarding traffic into the Zero Trust Exchange and to destinations, but can also act as a gateway to segment your user, OT and IoT devices as well as the applications from each other. So each of those entities is placed into a network segment of one, and if it wants to establish communication to a different type of device or a different device even in the same subnet, it needs to go through the Zero Trust Edge. And the Zero Trust Edge will then recognize and categorize that device and apply a dynamic policy. So to summarize, it's a really simple and effective way to establish micro-segmentation in your network without installing an agent on devices and to discover what kind of devices are within your IoT or OT environments. The next part, securing remote access, is also quite difficult because oftentimes you have these third parties that want to access an IoT or OT device and do maintenance on the device. So oftentimes they will just establish site-to-site VPNs into your infrastructure or host their own VPN gateways in your factories. And both of those approaches are quite problematic when it comes to security, because you're now introducing foreign networks into your infrastructures that can act as potential entries for attackers. So if the third party gets breached, you will get breached as well. You have to deal with an outage. So how can you solve this? It's really easy to just also create connections from third parties to your infrastructure, to the Zero Trust Exchange, which will then in turn act as a switchboard and only enable access to the right applications for the right user at the right time. How do we do this? So the first way to do it is either through the web browser. So if you have web applications or RDP or SSH or VNC connections, you can just deliver that to a third party through the browser without them having to set up anything. If there are protocols that cannot be delivered through the browser, it's also possible to spin up VPN connections from the third parties to the Zero Trust Exchange, then only enable granular access, or also create outbound connections to the third parties in case you're consuming a service that is hosted by them. The same is of course also true for your users. Your users are establishing connections through the Zero Trust Exchange to your applications, IoT and OT devices, and can benefit from the same way of offering conditional access to them. Coming to business continuity and disaster recovery. I've said it before, our cloud is hosted in 160 data centers globally, which means the cloud in itself is already extremely fault tolerant and architected in a redundant way. But of course, you also have to consider what happens if the cloud has a brownout or blackout situation. So we are offering you the possibility of spinning up a virtualized version of our cloud within your locations or your data centers. And as soon as there is an outage, your users will just seamlessly connect to that version of the cloud and then still have the same level of protection and access to the applications, and business will just continue as usual. I hope this gave you a short impression of how we can address those challenges. So we saw how you can secure your headless or IoT and OT devices, then also micro-segment them from each other, deliver secure remote access to external parties and of course your own users working from home, and then as well making all of this redundant, and then also how this Zero Trust architecture can stay operational and provide optimal availability and security even in the case of an outage. With that, if this got you interested in Zscaler, feel free to contact my colleagues at any time. We're happy to schedule a meeting to discuss this further.